Good morning, good day, good evening, good afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you're at, whenever you're watching this video. Thanks for coming in on this one. This is for our BALOO class. BALOO is your basic adult leadership outdoor orientation course, and for this we have five knots that we are going to be looking at. The first one here is going to be your simple overhand knot. The best way to think of the overhand knot: right over left. I like doing that. Right over left. Wrap it around. That's your overhand knot. Nothing fancy on that one. It's really simple. Where most people will recognize that knot is right here with your shoes. It's just a cinching knot. A way to really tie down, lock something in place. There you go. Right over left and under. Overhand knot. Boom. That cinches down, tightens up that shoe. We're going to finish off with the bow here, so I don't have to deal with a loose shoelace here. But it's also a starter knot for most, like that one I finished off with the bow. When working with ropes, you can do your right over left and under. There's your overhand knot. Now we're going to take that left side, go back over the right and under like that, and now we have a square knot. There's your locking knot. Now I want to be clear on this, that this is a square knot. When I take that square knot and I'm pushing it back, you notice how that slides back and forth. You have a bend or a loop. You have two of them on each side. See how those are working together back and forth, and you'll notice that the ropes, both ends of your ropes, are on the same side of that bend. Okay. Common mistake with this knot. I do want to show you this one. This is what you don't want to do. You do your right over left, but if I take that right and I do that right over left again, thinking that's a square knot, when you cinch it down, notice the ends. Ooh, I don't know why you don't do this knot. Let's take a look at that knot a little bit closer. There's your bend. Your ropes are on opposite sides of that bend, or that loop on each, and when I try pushing it back through, it is not. That knot there's called your granny knot. That is incorrect. So again, a square knot we want to look at is going over right over left and under, left over right and under, and that should be a nice clean knot. Now your hitches. A hitches is just a loop around a rope. So what we're going to take here is we want to get a loop in this rope. We're going to cross it over, make a T in that rope, or an X, whatever you want to do. But what we're going to do, this side is going to be the key. There's my working end. So I want to make sure I'm wrapping once underneath that loop or that T, and once above it, tucking it through on the same end. And what you have is you have a 2 half hitch knot. You're going to see the 2 parallel ropes on the back side. You're going to see a cross pattern on the front side. And the purpose of this rope is that it can be cinched and slide down on itself. So again, we're going to take a look at this one. That's our main rope coming in from that end. We're going to cross it over. We're going to wrap around that rope once underneath. That is a half hitch. People ask why it's called a 2 half hitch. That is a half hitch. And now we're going to wrap it around, do another half hitch on the other side of that rope. Make that cross pattern, 2 on the opposite side. It slides easily. That is your 2 half hitch. Now we'll take a look at this here momentarily on why we do that rope, because that often is partnered with what's called the taut line. Now the taut line starts off just like the 2 half hitch. We're going to go, except for rather than going once underneath that rope, I'm going to wrap it around a second time under that rope. And now I'm going to come back around and wrap it that third time above that rope, and we will cinch that down. Now, when you look at that and that's nice and tight, we look at the back side. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 2 below, 1 above. We have a bigger X on the front, and you'll notice it still slides. The advantage of the taut line is when that extra loop adds, or that extra hitch adds a little extra pressure. So when you're pulling on it, it is not as likely to slide on there. So it adds a little extra security, a little extra tightness, so it is harder to slide up and down the rope. So those two we always partner together. We're going to partner that again, 2 half hitch and the taut line. I'll show you, I'll stitch in here a example of that. All right, folks, so with your standard time or dining fly tents, often on the outside here, outside of this, they might have a loop you can hook into. I'm going to do this around the base because I don't have those loops, but this is where you get to see those knots come to play. So from the top here, we're going to do that 2 half hitch. So there's that cross. We're going to go once around, once on the other side of that cross or T, cinch that up. You're going to see those 2 lines there again, and there's the X on that. And the whole point of this now is that gets tied to the top and it slides nicely to give you that secure. So that's how we do the top or utilize the 2 half hitch. On the bottom side now, we have that coming from the top, coming down here. This is where you're going to see that taut line. So again, we're going to go that cross, we're going to go once underneath, twice underneath, once on top, and that gives you the tension, the taut, to tighten up that guy line. Again, that could slide down, you can see that slack, but I could simply, make sure I get that looped around right, tighten that up. That adds the tension, and that's what's going to keep your dining fly from lifting and going away. Now the 5th knot is the most confusing knot, but probably the most important knot. It is a knot that does not slide. It is known as the life-saving knot. So what I'm going to do here is I've got my rope hanging on here and away from my body. I'm going to make a simple loop on there, so you can see this part of the rope I'm going to be calling the tree from now on. Here's the tree, and I'm going to make just a loop and cross that over. Now notice I'm going to pinch those 2 together. I don't want these to move. Okay, I'll make that a little bit smaller of a loop. I don't want those to move. So now I have my working end, and how much rope you have is going to be that this is going to determine, or is determined by, how much of a loop you want. If you need a smaller loop right there, end product, or if I need a bigger loop, I can have that. It's all adjusted by how far I pull this one out. The phrasing we like using is I'm coming, the rabbit, I'm calling my tail end here, or the rabbit end is coming up through the hole. We are going to go around, as I called that, the tree, and we're going to come right back through the hole. That now you can see I've determined how big of a loop do I want. On here is determined how far down I go on that hole. I'm going to hold these 2 together, and I'm going to take that tree and I'm going to pull on the tree, and there is your bowline knot. This doesn't move. That's a nice secured loop for securing or anchoring. That might be a better way. That could be anchored around a tree. It could be anchored around the hitch of a car. Common. It could be anchored for pioneering projects. So I'm going to anchor this on the chair. That's off camera here. I'm going to anchor that on the chair. So there's my loop. It's not going to go anywhere. I'm going to create that loop there, bring this a little bit closer. I come up through the hole, around the tree, back down. So now, like I said, that size of that loop is determined by how close do I want, or how far do I pull that down through, and then I can pull that tree up to lock the knot in place, and that is now anchored onto just off screen here. Yeah, just off screen. I've got a pole I'm sitting on. I can pull that. It's not going anywhere. Now I've got an anchor point with a knot that won't slide. Do this, show you the differences now. And as a recap, actually I'm going to pull this camera up a little bit so you can see how I'm anchoring around this pole. If I were to do a 2/2 hitch, I'm going to go once around the rope underneath and once above. See, there's that cross, there's the two next to each other. If I pull on the tree, you can see that knot slides really easily down. If I untie, let's get that around our pole again. If I do my taut line, that's once underneath, twice underneath, once above, and I cinch and lock that in. As I pull here, it can slide, but it doesn't slide as easy. It takes a little more force. There's a little more friction on that rope, so it's not going to slide as easy. Now I'm going to take that again, I'm going to make that loop, that hole, make sure the tree is behind, underneath, whatever you reference point. I'm going to come up through the hole, around the tree, back through the hole, and again now I'm pulling on the tree to cinch and tighten that, and that is a non-sliding knot. So you're not going to have any movement. That's a good anchoring point. So as a recap, 5 basic knots we teach in BALOO: overhand knot, cinching knot, square knot, so as a locking or easy, typical, everyday knot. We have one under, one over for 2/2 hitch, and that is a sliding knot, tie down knot, if you will. And we have your taut line. That's once underneath, wrap the second time underneath, and once over. There you go. And there's your taut line. Higher friction, harder to slide, but movable knot. Thanks for joining in on this beautiful, beautiful day. If you liked this video, if you found this video helpful, please share it with your other BALOO participants or your other scouting friends that are learning these knots. It gives them a great reference point and a great way to practice their knots. And until the next time, have yourselves a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day.